There was a time when I thought my life couldn't be any more perfect. My name is Alex Thompson, a 32-year-old mechanic from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I didn't have riches or fame, but I had something far more precious: peace, purpose, and love. My wife, Sarah, and our little boy, Ethan, were my world. Together, we made our small corner of the world feel like heaven. Sarah and I met during our college years at the local community college. She was everything I wasn't: graceful, confident, from a well-off family. I was the grease-stained boy who worked part-time at a repair shop to pay tuition. She studied business. I studied automotive technology. Yet, somehow, our worlds collided one rainy afternoon when her car broke down near campus. I offered to help, hands trembling as I fumbled with the wrench, trying to impress her. She laughed, teasing, "You look like you're about to perform surgery, not fix an engine." That laugh, it still echoes in my heart. Despite our differences, love blossomed. Sarah wasn't like the others who judged by status. She said she admired my honesty, my hard work, and my simple dreams. Her parents, however, didn't share that sentiment. Richard and Vivian Harper lived in a world of elegance, lavish dinners, polished shoes, and business meetings. They had plans for their daughter that didn't include a small-town mechanic. I'll never forget Richard's words the day I asked for Sarah's hand. "How will you provide for her with tools and grease, Thompson?" I wanted to answer, "With love," but he wouldn't have understood. Sarah, stubborn as ever, stood by me. She said, "I'd rather have a life filled with laughter than luxury." We married under the open sky, beside the Cedar River, surrounded by fireflies and a handful of friends. No fancy gowns, no orchestra, just two people making a promise that love would be enough. Our home was a modest wooden cottage at the edge of town. It had peeling paint and a creaky porch, but it was ours. We planted daisies by the fence, and every morning, Sarah brewed tea while I made oatmeal. Ethan was born 3 years later, a little whirlwind with curly hair and eyes that mirrored Sarah's spark. The moment I first held him, I understood what it meant to have your heart living outside your chest. Our days were simple, but beautiful. I ran a small garage in town, fixing engines and restoring old trucks. Every evening, I'd come home, and Ethan would race toward me yelling, "Daddy's home." His laughter could melt the hardest day away. I'd craft wooden toys for him at night in my workshop, little trains, cars, and planes. He'd wake up the next morning, eyes lighting up as if I'd handed him treasure. Sarah would smile from the kitchen doorway, tea in hand, and say, "You spoil him, Alex." And I'd answer, "Just giving him the childhood every boy deserves." Life felt whole, imperfect, but content. Yet behind that peace, a quiet storm brewed. Sarah's parents visited occasionally, always leaving an air of disapproval. Vivian would scan our house with thinly veiled pity. Sarah could have had a much easier life, she'd sigh, her diamond bracelet catching the light. I'd pretend not to hear, tightening my jaw as Sarah defended me with grace. "I chose love, Mom, not luxury." But as much as I tried to ignore them, their words planted seeds of doubt, not in me, but perhaps in Sarah. Then came the day everything changed. It was a crisp afternoon in October 2023. I was elbow-deep under the hood of an old tractor when my phone buzzed. I almost ignored it, unknown number, but something in me urged to answer. "Mr. Thompson," a voice said, trembling slightly. "Your wife's been in an accident. She's at Cedar Rapids Hospital. Please come quickly." The wrench slipped from my hand. I don't remember the drive, only the sound of my heart pounding and the blur of red lights. At the hospital, sterile white walls closed in on me. A nurse guided me to the emergency room. Sarah lay there, pale and motionless, tubes and wires keeping her alive. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The doctor pulled me aside. She's suffered multiple fractures and internal bleeding. Surgery is critical. But, he hesitated, your insurance doesn't cover this level of care. It'll be expensive. I didn't care. Do whatever it takes, I said. Save her. In the next few days, I sold everything of value. My truck, the one I'd bought on our honeymoon. My garage, the business I'd built with my bare hands. Even my wedding ring, the one Sarah had slipped on my finger by the river that night. My hands shook as I placed it on the pawnshop counter. I took out high-interest loans, ignoring the suffocating numbers. 4 weeks. I lived at the hospital, sleeping on cold chairs, whispering to Sarah even when she couldn't hear me. You're going to be okay, honey. Ethan's waiting for you. He drew you a picture today. Our neighbors took care of Ethan. My parents called every night, voices heavy with worry. Sarah's parents came once. Richard stood over her bed, arms crossed. If she had married wisely, this wouldn't have happened, he muttered. Vivian dabbed her eyes, but avoided looking at me. Their words burned, but I bit my tongue. This wasn't the time for anger. Finally, after endless nights, Sarah opened her eyes. I broke down right there, holding her hand, thanking God over and over. When she was discharged weeks later, I brought her home, determined to rebuild everything I'd lost. I cooked her soups, helped her walk again, and spent hours talking to her just to see her smile. Ethan was overjoyed to have his mother back, always climbing into her lap, chattering about his drawings and school, but slowly, something shifted. Sarah grew distant. She'd retreat to the bedroom with her phone, whispering into it at night. When I'd ask, she'd snap, "It's just a friend, Alex. Stop hovering." Her eyes no longer held warmth, only exhaustion. Or was it guilt? One evening, I came home early from helping a neighbor fix a car. The light in our bedroom was dim, and I heard her voice, soft but tender, through the slightly open door. "I miss you too," she said. My stomach dropped. I froze, every sound suddenly magnified, her breath, the faint hum of the ceiling fan, the muffled tone of a man's voice through the speaker. When she noticed me, she went pale. "Alex, it's not what you think," she started. But the lie hung between us like poison. I couldn't speak at first. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would burst. "Who is he?" I asked quietly. Her silence told me everything. Finally, she said it, words that sliced through me. "I can't do this anymore. I'm tired of struggling, Alex. I've met someone who can give me the life I deserve." I stood there, numb. The same woman I had sold everything to save, the one I'd stayed awake nights praying for, was leaving me for money, for comfort. After everything. I whispered. "I gave up everything for you." She turned away, tears streaking her cheeks. "I didn't ask you to, Alex. Maybe that's the problem. You think love is enough, but it's not." And with that, she packed her bags. No goodbye to Ethan, no last look back. The sound of her car engine fading down the road was the loneliest sound I've ever heard. I went to Ethan's room. He was asleep, clutching the wooden train I'd built him. I knelt beside his bed, tears falling silently. "I'm sorry, buddy," I whispered. "I tried." That night, I sat on the porch, watching the moonlight glint off the empty driveway. Everything I had worked for, my home, my business, my marriage, had vanished like smoke. All that remained was my little boy, sleeping inside, unaware that his world had just changed forever. But even through the heartbreak, one truth began to form in my mind, the quiet, stubborn whisper that refused to die. I still have Ethan. And as long as I have him, I'll find a way. I didn't know it then, but that promise made on a broken night under a cold Iowa sky, would become the first step toward rebuilding everything I'd lost. When Sarah left, the world seemed to lose its color. The walls of our home echoed with silence, every corner reminding me of what once was. Bills piled up on the kitchen counter, and the phone calls from lenders became relentless. I had sold nearly everything. The only thing I refused to let go of was Ethan's smile. I moved into a tiny apartment above a laundromat, peeling paint, leaky faucet, one small window. I told Ethan we were on an adventure. He was too young to understand that our world had fallen apart. When he'd ask about his mom, I'd swallow the ache in my throat and say, "She's away for a while, buddy." He'd nod, trusting me completely. That trust was both my strength and my burden. Work was hard to find. I took whatever repair jobs came my way, fixing bikes, tractors, anything that would put food on the table. Some nights, I'd skip dinner so Ethan could have enough. He'd push his plate toward me and say, "Daddy, I'm full," even when he wasn't. Those moments broke me more than any loss ever could. One freezing winter night, Ethan woke burning with fever. The clinic was 5 blocks away, and I had no car, so I wrapped him in a blanket and carried him through the snow. My arms went numb, but I kept whispering, "Hold on, champ. We're almost there." The doctor said it was a bad flu and prescribed medicine I could barely afford. I spent my last few dollars, praying it would be enough. Watching Ethan sleep that night, pale and weak, I made a vow. I'll rebuild my life, no matter how long it takes. For him. A few days later, my parents, Marcus and Elena, called. They had finally learned the truth, the accident, the betrayal, the struggles. My mother cried over the phone. "You're stronger than this, Alex," she said. "Your father and I are sending some money. It's not much, but it's something to start with." Their faith in me reignited something I'd buried, hope. Word spread through Cedar Rapids about what had happened. Old friends started showing up. Mike, a fellow mechanic, brought a toolbox and said, "You'll need this more than I do." A neighbor dropped off groceries, whispering, "For Ethan." Even Dr. Lisa from the clinic refused to charge me for a follow-up visit. These small acts of kindness stitched my broken spirit back together piece by piece. Then came Olivia. She was Ethan's kindergarten teacher, kind, patient, with a smile that reached her eyes. She noticed the exhaustion on my face during pickup and said gently, "You look like you could use a meal and some rest." At first, I brushed it off, embarrassed. But she didn't give up. When Ethan forgot his lunch one day, she quietly shared hers. Later, she started visiting, bringing soup and vitamins. "Even heroes need help sometimes," she said. Olivia became a light in our dark days. She'd sit with Ethan, helping him color, or read bedtime stories when I worked late. Her laughter filled the apartment again, and for the first time in months, Ethan began to smile the way he used to. One evening, as I watched her help him build a toy car from old parts, I felt something stir inside me, not love, not yet, but gratitude and peace. With the money my parents sent and the tools from Mike, I started repairing small engines out of my apartment's basement. Word spread quickly, "Alex Thompson's back in business." Within months, I had saved enough to rent a small shed on the edge of town. I painted a sign over the door, "Thompson's Garage." Business grew slowly at first. But my honesty and dedication brought customers back. I'd fix cars late into the night, grease on my hands, determination in my heart. One day, I came home to find Ethan and Olivia waiting with balloons. "We made dinner to celebrate your first 100 customers." Ethan shouted proudly. That simple gesture meant more than any award. Years passed. The garage expanded. I hired 2 helpers, then 4. Soon, We had contracts with local companies, and I was able to buy a modest house with a big yard, a place Ethan could finally call home again. My parents moved closer, and I started taking care of them the way they had once taken care of me. Through it all, Olivia stood by our side. She never asked for more than what we could give, and she never treated my past as baggage. One night, after dinner, Ethan hugged her and said, "You're like Mom." I saw her eyes well with tears. That was the moment I realized love had quietly returned, gentle and genuine this time, under a starry sky, much like the night I'd once promised forever to Sarah. I turned to Olivia. "I don't have much to offer except loyalty, laughter, and a son who adores you." She smiled and said, "That's all I've ever wanted." We married in a small ceremony, surrounded by friends and family who had witnessed our journey. For a while, life was everything I had once dreamed, maybe even more. But life, it seems, always has a final test point. One afternoon, as I was closing the garage, I saw a familiar face by the gate. Sarah. She looked nothing like the woman I remembered, thinner, worn, eyes shadowed by regret. Her expensive clothes couldn't hide the exhaustion. "Alex," she whispered. "I made mistakes. The man I left you for, he ruined me. I lost everything. I didn't speak at first." She went on, voice breaking. "I don't expect forgiveness. I wanted to see Ethan." Ethan, now older and wiser, stood behind me, unsure. I knelt beside him. "It's your choice, son." He looked at her, then shook his head softly and whispered, "I have a mom." Sarah turned away, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I'm sorry," I told her quietly. "You walked away when we needed you most. We've moved on. I hope you find peace." She nodded, then walked down the road, disappearing into the setting sun. For the first time, I felt no anger, no bitterness, only closure. That night, as I watched Olivia and Ethan laughing in the yard, I realized life had come full circle. From the ruins of heartbreak, we had built something unshakable, a home founded on loyalty, resilience, and love that asks for nothing in return. I learned that true wealth isn't measured by what we own, but by who stands beside us when everything falls apart.